Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March Human Relations Commission meeting. Sorry for the late start. We're all coming from the far corners tonight. I think we'll go ahead and get started with roll call.
Commissioner Alasani, Commissioner McKetty, Commissioner Chen.
Here.
Commissioner Morin, Chair Onan,
Here.
Commissioner Savage,
Here.
Commissioner Strong.
Here.
All right, thank you so much. And next, we will ask about whether there are any agenda changes, requests, or deletions. I know that there's one item, which was the countywide HRC breakfast, which we are not going to be able to host because the county wants to host it. So we don't need the 10 minutes allotted for that, I think. We might want to strike it. Are there any other requests for changes, deletions? And we just finished roll call, but I wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Mark Berman, who's one of our liaisons, is here tonight. Thank you. All right, and then do we have oral communications that are not on any agenda item? So if you're not, if you are not here to talk about his rep. Okay, then I think we're good. So approval of minutes. And that was our January. Okay, January and February meetings. So these were the ones Mary distributed that we were all supposed to read, send back comments, and acknowledge. Does anyone have any additional changes or comments? Okay, are we able to approve them with only us here? Okay.
You have one oral communications today if you want to accept it.
I'm sorry, I can't even get my technology coordinated tonight. We are going to do the minutes first, and then we have a latecomer who would like to speak to us in oral communication, so I will allow that. Do I have a motion to approve the January and February minutes?
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Chen seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, then we have passed the January and February minutes. Thank you so much, Mary, for your help with those. And now the oral communication that we wanted to take on.
Are you doing the February meeting minutes as well?
Yeah, we did January and February. Is it okay that we did them all at once, or do we have to approve them separately?
Pardon?
We did January and February at once. Is that okay, or did we have to approve?
You should do them separately later.
Okay, so let's do our vote again. Do I have a motion to approve the January minutes?
I move to approve the January minutes.
And second to approve January. Okay, Commissioner Chan seconds. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, the January minutes are approved. Now, do I have a motion to approve the February minutes?
I move to approve the February minutes.
Okay, second? Second. Commissioner Moore seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, the February minutes are now approved. Thank you. Staff has to keep us on track at all times. All right, so now we have a speaker card from Jay West. And so this is for a non-agenda item. That's okay. All right. So come up to the microphone here. Okay, I don't actually know how this thing works, though. Do you guys control that? Oh, okay. And so it's how many minutes? 3 or 5? 5 minutes. All right, and then you'll see a yellow light when you're getting close to the end of your time. Okay, so please go ahead.
Wow. Should I go ahead and start right now? Go ahead and start right now? Okay. I don't know, it's difficult to come in a public forum and talk about some of these issues, so, and I'm not sure how much I can say about what's going on, but I live at Alma Place, which is a property managed by the Palo Alto Housing Corporation, and this is the second property I've been in, and it's me, it's kind of my thing that I do sometimes is I get the other resident tenants organized. And this is my second attempt at getting tenants organized, my first attempt at the Alma Place. Because I had been talking to tenants about some concerns that they've had about things that have gone on in the building. And we've had a couple of meetings with a few tenants who have met in an informal setting. And we decided to attempt to get organized. And our first organized an attempt was getting U.S. approved post office boxes installed at the building. And why did we want to do that? As it stands right now, the way our U.S. mail as resident tenants is delivered is it's delivered by the U.S. Post Office and it's dropped off with the management office at Alma Place. They then in turn are responsible for distributing the mail to the tenants. And what I personally became aware of, and in talking to other tenants, that they also experienced some of these problems, that we weren't getting our mail. We weren't getting our mail on a timely basis. We were told that we had to wait 4, 5, 6 hours, even though the mail was delivered at about 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Staff were giving the wrong mail to the wrong people. I might get somebody else's mail, somebody might get my mail, and you can imagine what kinds of problems that caused. We had problems with mail that had not been picked up from previous deliveries being stored and not being redistributed. So what we decided to do was do a petition. Go around and talk to as many residents as we could, and I think in some cases we did 3 or 4 trips to some units, but at least twice. And we asked them to sign a petition, which we sent to the postmaster for Palo Alto. And basically we made a simple request, which was that we wanted U.S. approved mailboxes installed at Alma Place so that residents would have their own keys, could get their own mail. It wouldn't have to go through the front office, and there wouldn't be any concerns about staff giving mail to people they weren't supposed to do, or withholding mail, or opening people's mail. All of these I've had problems with. And we collected 55 signatures. And we submitted the petition with a letter to the post office. And we're now in the process of getting reply. They replied back, which was good. It took a while. We kind of had to really be after them about that. It took a while, and we finally got a reply saying that they would submit a request to San Francisco. I'm not really sure what the request entailed, blah, 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 but they were looking into it, so that's good. One of the things we attempted to do, since now we've gotten a majority of the residents to support this effort, was to have an announcement made in the resident newsletter. Didn't think that since we had a majority support that would be an issue. And then when we submitted it, when we submitted it to resident services, wow, I was surprised at how much time it goes by. We were told that management did not want to approve that. And we were kind of really taken aback by it. But it didn't come to us as any real surprise, because we expected that there would be resistance from management because it involves money, particularly in space and all that kind of stuff, but really thought that that was important. I came to the meeting, this Monday, because, of the mobile home, the Bona Vista people getting organized, that kind of thing. But, really quickly, the other issue I wanted to talk about was that the Alma Place apartments had been going through a renovation that were requiring people to move out. And we were really concerned about that causing hardships on people, because when you're renovating someone's unit and you don't have a place for them to go, and you are requiring the resident tenant to incur all those costs, then it's a problem. And I'm kind of in that situation and not really sure how to work that out. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to you guys' attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. West. I appreciate you giving us that update on what's going on in Alma Place. Okay. All right, so let's turn now to the agenda items that we have tonight. We've already completed the approval of the minutes. And now we'll move to our first business item, which will be facilitated by the wonderful Consuelo Hernandez. It's a follow-up to the CDBG work that we've been doing. Consuelo, just to set the stage, had mentioned that we could set priorities, and we haven't done so yet. So tonight we're going to follow up on that item.
Thank you, Chair Nan. Good evening, members of the Human Relations Commission. Consuelo Hernandez.
And what I tried to do is really simplify this very big document that you've received as an attachment. And if you look at the second page of the staff report, what I've done is summarize the projected or the proposed goals that we have for the next 5 years. And it's this table here, if you see it in your staff report.
No, not this one.
And through our outreach effort that I mentioned last time around, we identified these 5 goals. And we also have to project how we are going to be using the funding within these goals and what we hope to gain from it. And just wanted to share with you and give you the opportunity to reflect and also to give you an example of what this looks like on an annual basis. So you made recommendations last month in February, and I just wanted to show the connection between what the goals are for the 5-year strategy or the strategic plan for 5 years and how that makes its way into the 1-year plan. So the top table shows you the 5-year goals with the funding based on specific priorities, and we designed them based on the feedback that we received from the public and what we heard from the selection committee, which is to have 15% of our funding go towards public service. I think we've always stressed maximizing those dollars for public services, which are the services that are similar to the HISRAP process. You do have the ability to bring that number down, but staff felt that based on previous years that we want to maximize that 15%, and so we've left it that way. You have the ability tonight to voice whether you want to change that or not. And then what we've done is affordable housing has also been one of our top priorities, and we're actually identifying a percentage. So 40% of all of the CDBG funding over the next 5 years will be spent on affordable housing. And the way that we've identified that is through rehabilitation of existing affordable units. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have. I didn't have a formal presentation. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to look at the goals and see if you had any questions. Because next year, when you're thinking, in 2 years, when you're thinking about the funding recommendations for the next 2-year funding cycle, this is what we'll be using to base our recommendations. Okay?
Yes. So I did have a question, Consuelo. So if we set aside the 40% for affordable housing going into the future, and let's say hypothetically that Buena Vista Mobile Home Park is able to stay open but will need extensive rehabilitation, could potentially those funds be sent that direction to help the residents there?
It depends on the nature of the program and the project, right? So you have to have, based on CDBG funding, we are required to have a project that's eligible and that meets a national objective.
Okay.
The national objective for Palo Alto typically is that it benefits low to moderate income individuals. So it's really a difficult question to answer without knowing what type of project it would be. Mobile home rehabilitations are an eligible activity,
Okay.
but there's more information that's needed in order to determine if the project itself and the items that they're requesting funding for would qualify.
Okay.
So if you think about the project that we're recommending for next fiscal year, the ADA compliance, that's one of the key points for HUD is to ensure that accessibility of the units. So that's the case where you can make that recommendation and the units are already affordable. So it really depends on what the project is.
Okay. Okay. So I know that 2 of our CDBG subcommittee members are here, and that would be Commissioner Stone and Commissioner Chen. Did you 2 have any comments? Because you're very, very familiar now with the CDBG recommendations, having worked on it so extensively. Do you have any comments or concerns?
I think it's really very nice of increasing that affordable housing percentage. That's really very big help for the city.
And no, I mean, I think we had a pretty thorough discussion at the last meeting. I don't think I have anything else to add. I agree with Commissioner Chen on the 40% as well.
Okay. So anyone else have any comments or questions about the CDBG priorities? All right, I think we're good then.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear. I know we don't always bring these documents to you, and I wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to provide us with feedback. The next step in the funding allocation for next fiscal year is on Tuesday, we'll be going to the Finance Committee. We will be giving them a summary of the HRC's selection committee meeting and your deliberations last month, and then the council will hear the item on May 4th.
Thank you, Consuelo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, subcommittee members, for taking charge of the CDBG process this year.
You're welcome.
All right, then we'll move on to item 2, which are the subcommittee recommendations for the HISRAP program for the, wait, is it fiscal years 2016 or 2015?
It's fiscal year 2016. We're in fiscal year 2015 right now.
Oh, okay.
So-
Okay. All right, before we do that, do we do the oral communications first, Minka?
I would do the report, just the initial report from Commissioner Stone on the process.
Okay.
And then you can open it up, and then you can have a deliberation about the subcommittee's recommendations.
Okay. All right, so Commissioner Stone?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll try to make this as brief as I can. So the subcommittee met twice to discuss, and we read through all the packets, all the applications, very thorough. So well done to everyone. And so we of course we had, and the commissioners on it was Commissioner Chen and Commissioner Bacchetti. Of course we had the issue that the requests exceeded the amount that we have for his rap by $617,855. So we had to make some tough choices. Essentially, the subcommittee determined that what we wanted to do was to create a preference for his rap agencies that had been previously funded, and we wanted to make sure that it was as consistent as possible, so we didn't make any major cuts that agencies would have to react to in any significant way. We came up with priorities that we found important for the city, and then sort of geared with an understanding of what our goals were, and we then kind of geared what agencies we wanted to fund more of, and from what agencies we might take back from. So there was a reason to our madness. So basically, to start, as a unanimous decision, we decided not to recommend any funding for health advocates. One of the reasons was because they asked for $500,848. They were a new agency. We thought that amount was too large, as well as we already have groups. We have similar services offered in the city that are pro bono, which are provided to the Palo Alto homeless community by the Stanford Law School Social Security Disability Project. And so we thought to spend money on it when those services are already being offered for free was unnecessary. We then looked at we determined which agencies we needed to increase, and we only increased 2 agencies. We increased the amount of funding by only $300 to La Comida. The reason for that increase was because La Comida needs to have 10% of the local, 10% of their total funding needs to be from a local agency, from Palo Alto, in order for them to get the bulk funding, which is from the county. The other agency that we identified, which we believed deserved increased funding, was adolescent counseling services. One of the reasons why we did that was we believe that the city of Palo Alto needs to take on a more proactive approach to youth well-being. We're all very familiar with the all too common issues that our city is having, and now this is even more important. Our task is even greater now after what happened this past week with another teen suicide. And so we all agreed unanimously that youth well-being needs to be a priority for the city, and we wanted to show that by our funding. The one agency that we then decreased funding was Mayview Community Health Center. They had previously received $29,000. They were requesting $25,000. So we gave them $25,000, and with that money, the money we took from them, we then moved it over to ACS and La Comida, and that is essential. And all the other agencies, we remained the same from the previous funding cycle. So that was our discussion and the reason why we chose the funding as we did. Commissioner Chen, do you have anything to add?
Oh, nothing. That's pretty much that we decided.
All All right, thank you very much for that discussion. So now we should open it up for public comment.
Yeah, I think that's fine unless Commissioner Stone wanted to just to briefly address the conversation
alternatives?
regarding the alternatives.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
The
Okay, so
hypothetical alternatives.
the alternatives we discussed. The alternative number one was
And maybe you can give a little prefix on why you, the subcommittee talked about alternatives, or if you'd like me to do so.
okay. I mean, if I miss anything, you can fill in. Essentially, we decided that having alternatives would be good, not knowing what's going to happen going forward with possible increased funding or what the finance committee may decide to do. We thought it'd be nice to have a few, option B and C, to be able to give a better insight into what we were thinking of at the time, and again, showing the priorities that the HRC, at least the subcommittee, wanted to set.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think that the subcommittee looked at past history, and in the last 2 cycles, there has been an increase by the Finance Committee where they've requested to go back to the HRC. And we thought that since this is the group, the subcommittee is the group that most thoroughly looks at the applications, the entire applications, not just the summary, that would be the wisest group to think about alternatives if that so happens. And as you notice in the staff report, that's not something that staff is seeking a recommendation on, because that would be presumptuous to do before any kind of council recommendation. But it was just to share your thinking, the subcommittee's thinking, with the full commission and allow them to ask questions.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so we'll go ahead and take comments now from the public. We do have a number.
Sorry, did you want me to discuss the?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where we are.
No problem.
So now you want to discuss the 2 alternatives?
The 2 alternatives?
Okay, yes.
Yeah? Okay, sounds good. So the first alternative was if there was a 5% increase over the amount that we had in fiscal year 2015. And again, we looked at what the priorities, what we identified as priorities for the city, and we again decided that youth services, especially services centered around youth well-being, was the most important thing that we could identify. We went against the idea of just evenly dividing it amongst the rest of the agencies, because we figured a very insignificant amount of money would not be able to do enough, and we thought if we targeted one group, they would actually be able to make a difference with that money. And again, with what our city has gone through over the past 5 months and what happened this week, we strenuously continue to believe in this strategy and the need for the city to fund these type of services. Alternative number 2 is that if there was a 10% increase, we would maintain alternative number 1 for that first 5% increase. For the second 5%, we would split that between 2 other areas of priorities that we identified. Those areas were physical and mental health care, and the second one was food services to vulnerable populations within the city. And so we would split up 2.5% of that would go to Mayview Community Health Center and Peninsula Healthcare Connection. The other 2.5% would go to Innovision Shelter Network and La Comida. And again, and then finally, if there was anything above that, we would maintain our alternative number 2, and then anything above a 10% increase, we would then recommend dividing that evenly amongst the rest of the applicants. Commissioner Chen, did I miss anything?
No, this is exactly what we have discussed at the meeting. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
It took us a while to figure that out, but we all of us, we had different kind of calculations, but at the end, we just decided the ballpark priorities before we got into numbers.
I thought we did it all in our head. There's no good.
You did it different from us.
And does our staff liaison have anything to add to Commissioner Stone's presentation?
No, that's good.
Okay, great. All right, so now we'll hear from the public. We do have a number of cards, so I'll ask each of our speakers to confine themselves to 3 minutes, just in the interest of time. And our first speaker is Joe Jaros.
Hello. I recognize many of you, and you probably recognize me from last year. I'm the supervisor of social services and a licensed clinical social worker from Vista Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Palo Alto. We've been in Palo Alto almost 80 years, and we really appreciate your continuing support of us the last few years. We continue to see many Palo Alto residents, new and returning clients with vision loss and blindness. We saw more than 50 seniors from Palo Alto last year, providing them very comprehensive services to help them to be safe and to stay as independent as possible. We provide home assessments of all of our clients. We provide the services, including emotional support, educating them in things as basic as exiting the house safely, calling emergency services, helping them to get the phones so that they can do that, preventing them from falling, teaching them techniques to make them safer, basic food preparation, safety, accessing their medications and their diabetic care and other health management, helping them with money management, and to find alternative ways to read so that they can manage their bills and that sort of thing. We help them to travel in their neighborhoods, cross streets, use public transit, and we educate them about their eye conditions. We have a low vision clinic that helps to maximize the vision that people have that see us. Many of them have low vision and are not blind. We aim to prevent institutionalization and the loss of independence. We teach assistive technology to enhance independence and employability. We provide counseling and support groups and adjustment to vision loss classes. On our premises, we have a store that has a lot of aids that are helpful to our clients, as well as a branch of the Stanford Health Library, so that people can become knowledgeable about their health conditions in a format that they can access, as well as learning about their eye problems. We work with school children, and we also work with a youth group. We serve all clients regardless of their ability to pay. We have a very diverse population, which is becoming more and more diverse, ethnically and economically. Your support at the level that we requested would help us even better to continue to do a great job of seeing the folks that we see with vision loss and blindness. And one of our Palo Alto support group clients yesterday in the group, when she heard I was coming, said to tell you, Vista Center is amazingly invaluable to me and everyone else who comes here. And she was a Palo Alto senior.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, again, 3 minutes, will be Francis Roth.
Hello, I came to add my support to Joe's plea for VISTA program. As someone who had fantastic vision until about 6 years ago, it's very demoralizing to suddenly find that your vision is going away, that I can see the outline of you, but I can't see your features. So VISTA gives you not only physical support, but also emotional. They had a wonderful program that dealt with what happens to your psyche when suddenly your vision goes away. I have AMD, age-related macular degeneration, and it's kind of stabilized, but I don't know if it's how much worse it's going to get. So knowing that there's a place like Vista that is very helpful. I had a occupational therapist that came to my house and went through everything, told me where I should put lamps and how I should make sure I don't fall down the stairs. And the services they give you are invaluable, and they never ask you for money. Naturally, if you can pay some, you send it in, but it's nice to know that they take care of anybody who needs help. So I'm so glad to hear that you do support them and hope that you will continue that. Thank you. Oh, and I've lived in Palo Alto since 1959.
Thank you, Ms. Roth. Our next speaker will be, thank you, God. Our next speaker is from Abilities United. Is it Sheridan? Sheridan. Nicholas? Okay, I'm really not on tonight.
No problem. Thank you so much, Commissioners. I'm very happy to be here today. And I'm here, my name is Sheridan Nicolau. I'm the Associate Director of Abilities United, long-standing nonprofit social service and support agency in Palo Alto. I'm here with our Executive Director, Charlie Wydance, and we are thrilled to be here and want to extend our deepest thank you and appreciation for your continued partnership over the years. Abilities United has been in Palo Alto and focusing on our community here since the 50s, and we formally incorporated in 1963. So that's officially 52 plus years here in this community. And while we support San Mateo and Santa Clara County, our focus has always been partnering closely here at home in Palo Alto and serving this community and our families in need. We provide a variety of services, as some of you are well aware, everything from early intervention services, serving at-risk and delayed infants and toddlers along with their parents, providing therapy services, occupational speech, speech and language, physical therapy, mental health support, early intervention support, assessments, parent education and training. We have an inclusive preschool. We have therapy services of a variety of kinds, including group. We do respite home companion services, so that helps families stay together who normally would not be able to stay together because of the intense needs of a loved one with disability in their life. We offer after-school socialization, which is a key resource to be able to support kids and teenagers with significant challenges, helping them learn the socialization and the recreational skills so they can be more included in a typical school environment, after-school environment, summer camps. We run 2 summer camps and have a valuable, incredibly valuable partnership with the City of Palo Alto for the Summer's Excellent Adventure Inclusionary Summer Camp. This is our 3rd year being involved, and we're just thrilled. We love it and can't wait to do more for the city in that respect. And we also have employment services. We have placed over 350 people in competitive employment across the Bay Area and tend to do about 30 to 45 people in competitive employment, place them every single year. We also offer day programming for adults that are building vocational and daily living skills. And we offer adaptive aquatics and customized therapeutic swim lessons and supports for children with developmental and other challenges. So that's just some of the many services. We've been very happy to exceed our targets most years in terms of service hours for here in Palo Alto, people and families we serve in Palo Alto. We intend to do so again this year. And we very much appreciate the support, look forward to our continued partnership, and looking for new ways for us to innovate to serve the people of Palo Alto. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Our next speaker, I can pronounce this name, Barbara Klausner. Please come speak to us, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much. First, I just wanted to thank the subcommittee for the work that they did, for the recommendation they're making. As the executive director of Dreamcatchers, we really appreciate your comment about stability. Being able to predict sort of a steady flow of funds, no major ups and downs, makes a huge difference to a small nonprofit, which I think probably speaks for several of the organizations here. And also to thank you for taking the time to do the analysis for the potential alternatives. That was very much appreciated, and Dreamcatcher certainly appreciates its inclusion in the first alternative. I also wanted to really thank the subcommittee and the HRC on behalf of acting on behalf of the city for continuing the partnership as well, because as a nonprofit, really being able to present ourselves to the community as sort of a worthy cause, having the district, the county, and the city standing behind us and funding us makes a huge difference and sends out a really important message to the community that we are something of great value that we provide to Palo Alto. So thank you for that. And I did want to mention that I think that one of the particularly valuable features of having funding from the City of Palo Alto is the fact that Dreamcatchers is really the only program. It's an after-school tutoring program for low-income middle school students, and it's really the only one that I can say welcomes every single Palo Alto resident. You'll find that most other after-school tutoring programs, even if they're based in the Palo Alto School District, are often geared towards our students who come from East Palo Alto. So I think that by funding this, you're funding an organization that really is filling a gap of what we often refer to as kind of an invisible part of our population. And without your funding, it would make it that much more difficult. So again, thank you for that. The last sort of big point I want to make is to really thank you for the focus. I mean, I really appreciate the thoughtful, strategic approach to looking at the organizations that you're funding and really focusing on youth and the organizations that are supporting youth. We are primarily thought of as an after-school tutoring, but also mentoring program, and we do focus on the middle school ages. And we find that, again, with your support, we're able to provide not just sort of people think of the academic support, which is definitely what the kids and the families want to see, help with their homework. But because we can provide one-on-one volunteer tutors, mostly Stanford undergraduates, but also high school students from Palo, Gunn, Castellea, and now some young professionals from downtown Palo Alto, which we really appreciate, we can create kind of that support network for students. So yes, we want to provide academic support, but we're also able to help them develop sort of close mentorship relationships, and appreciate that. Is that my time? Thank you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Oops. Thank you, Barbara. All right. Our next speaker will be Beatriz Lopez.
Good evening. Can you hear me? So I am a staff attorney with Senior Adults Legal Assistance, which you all know as SALA. And for those of you who don't know that much about us, we're a nonprofit law office. We've served the county since 1973 and also Palo Alto. These are seniors, Palo Alto seniors and county seniors. We target clients who are low income or at risk of abuse or loss of independence. We currently receive the HISREP funding, and we thank you for that. Your funding enabled us to expand our appointment sessions in Palo Alto at both Avenidas and Stevenson House. Last year, 71% of Palo Alto seniors we served were very low income. By that I mean at or below 50% of the median income level. And 53% were 75 or older, 38% were disabled. These factors place them at greater economic and social risk. We are requesting the funding to continue our services for Palo Alto seniors next year, and we thank the HISREP subcommittee for recommending funding. At SALA, we continue to see seniors with problems involving their public benefits, and these public benefits, they rely on these to meet their basic needs. And I'm talking about Social Security, SSI, Medicare, and Medi-Cal, among others. Seniors facing eviction or whose housing is otherwise in jeopardy. Seniors who are victims of elder abuse. Unfortunately, this continues to be a growing problem nationwide and throughout the state. They're usually being abused by someone living in their homes, either adult children, grandchildren, caregivers, or tenants who are renting rooms from them. And we also continue to see seniors who need to do basic planning for incapacity and for end stages of life to enable them to age in place, remain independent, and avoid conservatorships. Without SALA, most of these clients would not be able to navigate the legal system or public benefit systems. They would not be able to represent themselves in court or benefit appeals, or to prepare powers of attorney or any other documents that they would need to prevent abuse, conservatorships, or institutionalization. We cannot charge any fees for our services, and we cannot accept any fee-generating cases. The only way we can support our services is through government grants and private sources. So your funding helps us provide the highest level of service possible. We hope that the HRC will support the HISREP subcommittee recommendation for funding, and we thank you again for your past support and for your future support. I also have brought some brochures about SALA that describes the kinds of issues that we help with, all the areas that we help with. I've brought enough for everybody in the room. And thank you again.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. And our next speaker, I can pronounce his first name, Hyrie. Please come forward. You have 3 minutes.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being who you are and helping out Momentum. I appreciate it. I want to let you know about what I do in my job. First of all, I am a homeless outreach specialist. My job is to go throughout Palo Alto. I also do the whole county of Santa Clara. I develop a trust and rapport with the unhoused population, and I try to navigate them into the right direction. If it's mental health, I refer them over to the 1-800 number, and that's the first step to access mental health services throughout Santa Clara County. If it's drugs and alcohol, that's the Department of That's Dad's. I'll give them that number there. They can use my cell phone, and I will assist them in obtaining services. My main population are those that are homeless and mentally ill, and it's a difficult population to work with. It takes time to get that rapport and that trust with them and to help them get through the system. Currently, I've been with the courts in Palo Alto with a public defender, Gary Goodman, Cindy Green from Dad's, and I'm the mental health component, along with Julie Lang from Downtown Street Team, and it's called PAR, Palo Alto Review. And what it does, it works with people that have a contact with the police in Palo Alto and the surrounding areas, Mountain View PD, Los Altos, that area there. And they come in, and a lot of them have like a misdemeanor. They have no felonies, and it's like drunk in public, open container, jaywalking, smoking in public, too many shopping carts, illegal lodging, and we're able to work with that population and get them services and get those records dismissed and off their record to give them hope and rebuild those bridges back to their family members. And we're getting a lot of good positive reviews throughout the county, and also other counties also want to implement what we're doing here in Palo Alto. So if you ever have a chance, you should come to the court there. If you want, I could email you the schedule, and you'll see how we work together with the different nonprofits, which would be Downtown Street Team, the Opportunity Center, Momentum for Mental Health, DADS, and the public defender, along with probation, and also the judge. And we're all on board on this, and it helps. It's great for those people that are in court. A lot of them are scared. They have no hope, and they leave there feeling better about their situation. So again, I want to thank you. I could talk more and more, but I don't like talking, so have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Hyrie. Our next speaker is Leif Erickson. Please come forward, 3 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you to Commissioner Stone for kind of framing the strategic direction and conversation in the context of the loss of the student earlier this week at Palo. I know that each of the commissioners and those of us who lead safety net community programs in different ways are grieving and concerned this week and tonight for our situation. And Youth Community Service was a founding member of Project Safety Net that's been very involved, of course, in this work, and I know that there's some active work going on right now to sharpen the direction and the leadership of Project Safety Net initiative and to bring that forward to the Policy and Services Committee and also the School City Liaison Committee. So we're looking forward to that work and responding to our community situation. One of the contributions of Project Safety Net has been putting together these crisis protocols, and that's what's going on in the Palo campus this week. Is hundreds of students are going through one-on-one conversations with mental health professionals from Stanford campus, ACS, that does so much good work, and CASI and CARA and other organizations. So I'm very proud of the work that Project Safety Net did to make that work possible. A lot of the work is in these crisis response times is intervention. But an important part of the longer term perspective is the prevention work that goes on to build wellness, build self-esteem, build a sense of connection and self-respect and communication for all students. That's the prevention work that Dreamcatchers does so well. It's the work that Youth Community Service does in our different programs. And it's been interesting to us. This year has been a growth year for us. We've been doing more in the area of intervention on the campuses, being called in to work with students who are involved in truancy issues, bullying issues, and other areas where they're not fitting the campus culture and need a restorative, service-based reentry into the school culture in a way that's healthier for them and healthier for the school community. So we lift that up as an area of growth and learning that we're proud to be participating in and look forward to doing more in the future. I want to lift up to, very quickly, lift up to HRC a unique opportunity I think that you all have in the coming year for leadership in the area of responding to this youth crisis. And you have a whole array of intergenerational groups, and many of them are involved in mental health issues. And one of our critical learning areas is how to increase the fluency, the literacy of our whole community, all ages, in mental health literacy, mental health fluency, so that the stigmas go way down. Everyone is free to talk about this, understand it, same way we talk about needing to fix a broken leg. I think that work, you all have a particular gift and mission that might assist us in that area, and to do it in a generational way. One final is to invite you all. We're proud to host a program next week that's very, very relevant to this, and that's Dr. Vicki Zaszewski from UC Berkeley's Greater Good Center. Will be speaking at the Mitchell Park Community Center on Thursday, March 19th at lunchtime, and she will be speaking about helping young people balance success and well-being, and helping all of us help young people balance success and well-being. And she's got research about building relational trust among staff, parents, and students. So I invite you all to consider attending. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leif, and we're just going to overlook the fact that you exceeded your time because we like you. Does anyone else wish to speak to us tonight? If so, you'll need to give us a card. You fill out a speaker card. Yeah, we'll wait. We'll just give you a moment to do that because we want to make sure everyone has a chance to address us who wants to speak tonight. Are we ready? Great. Thank you, Mary. So our next speaker is Anka Diddle?
Erica Riddle.
Okay,
That's okay. Weird spelling.
Okay, thank you.
I'm the Advancement and Marketing Director at Adolescent Counseling Services. I apologize for being late. It's been a very crazy week on all fronts at ACS, and a crazy year at that. And so I just want to voice our appreciation to the HRC subcommittee for recognizing the need for more youth services and increased funding there, especially in regards to mental health. I can give you a snapshot of what we've seen so far this school year, and it's been insane. My emotions are a little high because at ACS it's been a really tough year. I mean, we on all staff levels are dealing with these suicides and these losses, and it's affected all of us. At Gunn High School, we've already seen double the number of students we saw last year. We're only in March. This year, Leif talked about the work that was done at Palo this week in response to the suicides, and I'm proud to say that I spoke with our site director there, and we worked with all those other organizations Leif listed to help over 200 students. So over 200 students were seen this week. They were checked in with to make sure that they were okay, and ACS will continue to be there to make sure that those who need to be seen are seen, and those who want to come in and need someone to talk to have that resource. So on behalf of ACS, I just really want to thank you for your recommendation for increased funding for us. That'll allow us to provide more interns and more experienced interns at our school sites. And also, just again, for your support of youth services in the community. It's definitely needed, and I think we're all seeing that. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Erica. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to us tonight before we begin our discussion? All right, thank you so much. All right, so we have the recommendations from the subcommittee, and we've heard from some members of the HISRAP community. Who would like to get us started? I do have some thoughts, but I want to open it up to my colleagues before I chime in. Does anyone have anything they want to say? Okay, then I will go ahead and chime in. So I read through the recommendations very carefully, and I understand the reasoning behind them, and I support much of the reasoning, but I do have some concerns. This is going to be a hard act to follow, though, after what Erica just said, but one of them is that I'm a little worried about how much we're funding ACS. Please hear me out before you all boo. ACS is already our largest agency. They get much more funding than any other agency. I'm really fine with the allocation of the $4,000 that became available in the budget, but if they're going to get a big chunk of the pie in the 5% distribution as well, they're really getting double. They're already way ahead of everybody else, and then they're getting double. And my concern is that, although I'm very upset about the suicide clusters that we've had as much as anyone, I feel like it's a complex issue, and we have to make sure that kids are getting what they need all along the life cycle, not just when they're finally in crisis, but we need to make sure we're doing things before they get to crisis, and we've got to do things to help families maintain their stability. And in addition, mental health issues don't just affect the young. You know, we've had senior suicides in our community, and that doesn't get the kind of airtime that the youth suicides do. We've had, senior homeless freezing to death in the park. And again, these things don't always get the same kind of compassionate community response when a young person tragically takes their life. So I understand that, but I want to be a voice for the whole community, and I just don't want us to get too off base. So that's one issue that I have. The other is I support the categories that the subcommittee came up with, but I'm wondering if they're a little too narrowly focused. So for example, the agencies that are identified as being youth-oriented, for example, they leave out Abilities United, and yet Abilities United has a very important early intervention program for young people. So I would kind of hate to have that get left out.
So possibly what we could do is speak to the actual main recommendation, because that's more of what you're discussing is more of a discussion item. Okay. But if you could speak maybe to changes to the main recommendation, and then maybe what you're saying could very well, you could be suggesting changes to the subcommittee's recommendation, but the alternatives are just a pure discussion item for something hypothetical that came up. So maybe we could speak to this first, and like I said, you could very well, that's within your prerogative to make any change, to this document, but if we could maybe speak to that first so the two don't get a little confused, because the other increases are completely hypothetical and that's
that
the
makes
big
total
if.
sense. If the budget we have is simply the budget we have and there's no hypothetical increase, then I'm really fine with everything the subcommittee decided. I think they made a hard choice, but a good choice for how to spend that money, and I would totally support the distribution of the excess funds to mainly go to ACS with a small increment to go to La Comida to make sure they get their 10%. So that they're eligible for county funding. So most of my comments then would be in the realm of the alternatives. I hope that when we go to finance, that they'll be open to adding some more money into the HISRAP pot, given the need in the community. But then to go back to what I was saying, I do have some concerns about whether the categories are too narrow. As I mentioned, I think Abilities United would be an eligible agency in terms of serving youth. I think Momentum for Mental Health would be an eligible agency in terms of providing for health care. I just don't want people to get left out because we too narrowly defined the category, but I understand the concern about the grants becoming too small to be meaningful. So I do get that. And I think the final point I had is there is a part of me that's very uncomfortable with overlooking agencies altogether, simply because the cost of living here in Palo Alto is very high and getting higher. So when we don't add anything to the agency, in effect, we cut them. We're not actually cutting them, but in effect, we're cutting them. And that makes me just a little worried about them going forward. So I do understand the reasoning, and I actually support much of the reasoning, but these are some things that are troubling me, and I'm hoping that we can talk about it and try to come up with the most optimal solution for everybody. So what did the subcommittee members think in response to what I said? You disagree? You agree? You have any other thoughts?
Well, sorry. Grant proposal, in the end, they're very, 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 very in terms of asking support this year versus last year. Some asked like 75% more than last year. So we had a hard time to determine the numbers. So now we decide just to prioritize what area.
Of ACS getting the bulk of the increase. And I think what we saw is that Palo Alto is really suffering from a pandemic right now, and we need to, and I think we viewed ACS as the front lines of this issue, and I agree. Every time I see a newspaper article, it's ACS at the schools responding to these crises, and so I think we. For most of our woes is more money, and all these agencies are deserving of it. And so that's really the takeaway here. And I think, as the representative from ACS mentioned, they're already at the double amount. And wanting to increase funding to the other areas. Again, I think we viewed it and thought, if we split it up evenly, what are the agencies going to be able to do with an extra few $100s? We didn't think they'd be able to do too much with that, and so we really looked. Funding levels, yeah, we're going to end up having an issue going forward. So I think that is something to look forward to, look at possibly in the future. But right now, I stand by the recommendation.
Are there some other commissioners who want to chime in, who have thoughts on either my position or the subcommittees? Commissioner Moran, do you have any?
Could you speak a little bit more, Commissioners Chen and Stone, regarding the increase for La Comida? I understand your thematic increase for youth-related services, but I don't quite understand. I'm asking for clarification, basically.
Needs to have 10% of their total funding from a local source. Because we're the only local source, we had to make sure that they were at 10% of that. So we increased the funding to make sure that they got to that 10% threshold.
Yeah. And my other question is clarification, I think, from Minka at this point, which is that when you're speaking about, as I understand it, the future increases, what we're talking about here is just this recommendation at this time, right? We're not talking about how money would be allocated should there be increases.
Correct. We're just getting, there's going to be a vote taken on the recommendation of the subcommittee. Like I said, you can make alterations. Wants to look at his RAP and different ways of supporting his RAP, it's going to come back to the HRC. I think it was just a little bit of thought of some thinking of the subcommittee who has most thoroughly looked at the applications. But when it comes back to the HRC, the HRC might task the subcommittee again and say, okay, this is, the council, the finance committee did, consider recommending some more money. You take our thoughts that the chair and the other commissioners gave at the meeting back in March and go think about it a little bit more and come back. Because a lot of that good analytical work often works best at the subcommittee level. So I think Mary's taking really good notes of the comments tonight. So if that time recommendation up, down, tweaked, it's really your decision. And then it will go on to the Finance Committee on April 21st. And a representative from the, often the chair, often
in general would be on this. For example, I remember when I did visit Sala, being reminded by them of the invisibility at times of senior-related being perhaps less charitable at this time with health advocates, because we do have momentum for mental health and
$1,000 basically around, then I think the subcommittee came up with a great strategy for doing that. If that is the actual amount that we have to distribute, then I think it makes sense to give the bulk of it to ACS at this time, at this crisis time for the community, while protecting lives. So I think my concerns then would be confined to the alternatives and whether they're a little too narrow, whether they're excluding people unnecessarily. But is that something we can take up depending on what response from Finance Committee is?
that's certainly correct. It wouldn't be, the Finance Committee could very well have ideas, and give some specific direction. I know when the money was added last year, there was a couple stipulations, emerging needs, or look at needs that were on the applications last time and you weren't able to meet. So, we'll if that time comes, we'll take their direction into effect and bring that back to the HRC for your thoughts. If that's what the Finance Committee wants to do, is push it back to the HRC, which is usually what happens.
So I wonder if I could ask our council liaison, can you remind us who's on the Finance Committee this year?
Absolutely. And Mark Berman, liaison to the HRC. It's an all-new Finance Committee. So Greg Schmid is the chair. Greg Scharf, Liz Niss, the council members Scharf and Niss, and Phil Seth make up the rest of the committee. So none of them were on the committee last year. So it's a whole new crew that you guys get to influence with your very good arguments.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Berman. All right. So then, does anyone else have any comments about the recommended distribution, which is the amount of money we know that we have in the budget, and the distribution of that $4,000? All right, so then should we go ahead and make a motion to approve that? Okay, does anyone have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Moore in seconds. All right, all in favor of approving the subcommittee's recommended HISRAP funding allocation, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Okay. All right, then we have passed that. Thank you both so much for that very, very careful analysis. And thank you to everyone who came and spoke to us tonight. This is not a done deal, so stay tuned, and we'll see what happens when we go to the Finance Committee.
And on behalf of Mary and I want to thank Commissioners Stone, Chen, and Bacchetti, who was there at the first meeting, who took the time to read the packet of information and gave some really careful thought and analysis to you. So thank you.
All righty. So our next order of business tonight is to debrief and discuss our joint study session with the City Council, which occurred on Monday. And we're back on the dais again where we were on Monday, so it's deja vu. So my overall thoughts were that I think it went quite well. I think we all had a chance to speak up and share some of our experiences and achievements over the last year. We got some great feedback from the individual council members, and definitely some things to think about. So what did the rest of you take away from that? What are some things that are you think are important to follow up on?
Well, just generally speaking, I think council was impressed, if I can say so, with us, because sometimes we feel like we're the forgotten child, because we really don't have that much power, although we're big on recommendations. So, so I think all in all it went well, and I'm glad that we had that opportunity to do that.
Commissioner Moore?
I remember the council said at one point that they were impressed by our enthusiasm, and reflexively, I was impressed by their enthusiasm, and it was uplifting, actually, to see that they were involved as well.
I think I was very impressed that they're very impressed with the seniors summit that we had this first year. You did very good response. They had their suggestions, and also on this affordable housing issue, there are a number of suggestions as well. We could talk about it, later on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Commissioner Stone, any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, no, I thought I was very impressed with I thought there was a lot of enthusiasm from City Council for the projects that we were coming up with, and it seems like we're really kind of coming together now with City Council, so that seems exciting, and again, yeah, they just all seem to love the senior summit. So again, kudos to Chair Onan for that, because that was an impressive project.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
And can I add also, if I may, kudos to Ms. Vanderswijk. Every time that she says something, I'm just so relieved that she's there as this font of information.
I know Minka saved us many, many, many times, and we really appreciate that. I think we have a number of things to follow up on from the study session. I know that Council is eager to see what becomes of the Homeless Vets project, and I know that Commissioner Stone and Al Hassani are working on that. And my understanding is they are planning a Homeless Vets Summit. So I don't know, did you have a quick update or anything to share with us on that, Commissioner Stone? Yeah.
So I mean, just very brief. I know Mehdi has been reaching out from New York on his, well, he's not on vacation, but he's there for business, but he's still reaching out and trying to gather presenters and speakers and people that we can talk to. And I know he and I have discussed this quite a bit in the past week, and thinking about asking David Cortese, possibly Joe Samishian, and a third speaker to present at that summit. So we're kind of looking out. So if there are any suggestions from Mark Berman or any of the other commissioners here on who would be a good speaker for that, that'd be great. So I think we're just looking right now at a June, maybe July date for the summit, but we're excited for it.
And I know for my part, the Senior Summit was a really successful event, but the important part of the work still has yet to be done, and that is the subcommittee, which is myself, Commissioners Greer and Morin, need to start meeting and identifying potential projects in collaboration with staff. And that's going to be a lengthy process where we sift through all the data that we got at the Senior Summit and start to narrow down what we think is actionable in the next year so that we can come up with some funding proposals for the county and the city. So that's going to be quite a bit of work, but I think it's important for something to come out of that summit, not just that we all really connected and collaborated and got to know each other, but I think I'd like to have something actionable come out of it that really impacts the community in a positive way. And I think that's doable as long as we watch our milestones and have enough lead time to get that done. I know that Supervisor Simidian is very supportive, and I think the council understood the need to increase services to seniors in our city, particularly because of the large demographic here. So that's some work ahead of us.
May I add?
Please.
You know, one of the words that came out with me from the study session relative to that was leveraging, which is to try to take this information that's being accumulated at this point and these relationships and try to leverage them in different ways at this point.
And can I piggyback on that?
Oh, please.
And another thing that I cannot remember which councilman said it, but I thought it was kind of telling of their opinions, and I think something that we are starting to do this year is getting more specific on projects so we can really get something done. So I think that's going to be great with the going away from the Senior Summit, finding 1 or 2 projects that we can actually tackle.
Yeah, and I think too the Homeless Vets Project kind of illuminates that as well, because homelessness is a very difficult and complex problem to tackle, but perhaps targeting a particular demographic within that community where, again, we may be able to do something actionable and house at least some members of that particular segment, derive some learnings and some best practices from that, and there may then be an opportunity to expand that model for other members of the homeless community. But sometimes you have to kind of find a door, like a way in order to start tackling from inside out, because otherwise it can be so overwhelming. So I think that that's a really good focus that Commissioners Greer and Al-Hassani came up with. So I think what we're going to need to do, based on the feedback we got, is continue with our work plans and start making sure our subcommittees are meeting regularly and setting up milestones so that we can have regular check-ins with everybody and start to hit some dates throughout the rest of the year so that by the end of the year we've gotten to our goals or at least made significant progress toward the goals so that when we report back into council next year we have something that's been achieved. Because all the great ideas in the world don't get you anywhere. We have to kind of make it all real. That's the hard part. So the heavy lifting is ahead, but I think we're off on a good start. So does anyone else have any comments or feedback? Or Councilmember Berman, do you have any additional feedback for us?
Sure. I mean, one thing, and I can't remember if I mentioned it on Monday night, sometimes hindsight helps you come up with all the ideas and comments you should have said in the first place, and this is kind of following on Commissioner Savage's point, I could believe it, that being on the HRC, sometimes you felt like the forgotten commission over the past couple of years. And I was just thinking back quickly about how 5 or 6 years ago the big focus was on fiscal responsibility and shoring up the budget and these types of things. The past 3 years it's been a big focus on infrastructure, a big focus on traffic and some of the challenges of development. But I think we are seeing a big shift in focus from the council's perspective on a lot of the work that you guys do, and that was emphasized by healthy cities, healthy communities becoming a priority this year. It had been put up for a priority 2 years ago, not last year, but the year before, when I was first on council and lost either 5-4 or 6-3, I can't remember, at the retreat, and it won, I think, unanimously this time, and it's one of those issues that I think is very much coming to the fore for the council for issues that we want to focus on. So I'd say it's an exciting time to be on the HRC, and you guys are well on your way with a lot of new initiatives, and I think we're all eager to embrace the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Councilmember Berman. I too have kind of noticed a shift in council more recently where we used to get some pushback around human services in a sense that, the city's not in the social welfare business, that's not what we do. But I think sometimes these very tragic impacts that we can see or feel in our community make us realize that the health of one person is the health of all people who live here, and that sometimes you need to, help each other out and provide some supportive services. And it gets to be beyond just a strictly economic argument, because you can't have a vibrant, well-to-do city if there's poverty, and depression and suicide and things happening. So those things just don't go together. So we're glad that council is understanding our work and is supporting it. And we hope this is the year that we really make some steps forward. So thank you. All right, so if there are any other comments or questions or concerns? All right, then I think we're done with this item. So let's move on then to, so our next item was supposed to be the HRC breakfast, and just a quick update. We had offered to host it for the second time, which I was looking forward to, but the council trumped us. I mean, not the council, the county trumped us. Sorry, not the council. I was looking at Mark. The county. And which is awesome that they're going to step up and do it. But so we won't have an opportunity this year, but maybe next year our turn will swing back again. It's always just a nice time to meet county colleagues and colleagues at HRCs at other cities. So hopefully many of us can go. Maybe we can carpool down there because traffic is a bear going to San Jose at that time of the morning. So any comments or questions on that? Alrighty. And then our next item is Commissioner Chen is going to give us an update on the research she's been doing into the affordable housing ideas that we got from Hillary.
Well, yeah, I haven't done a lot of research, but I gather the information we learned on Monday. I think there are two things we wanted to do. One is we should be looking into the availability of housing, not for just low income, even for the middle income families in Palo Alto. It becomes very, very difficult. And the suggestion is how we're going to do that. So one of the things is making the connection between the renters and then the landlords to connect together. So I mean, I think I'd like to bring up the discussion how we can do that. One way is to collaborate with some nonprofit organization when they have the resources to do. They're doing something like this already, and have them expand it to do the rental connection with their future proposal. That's one thing, right? The same situation. The second one is for the senior house co-housing as well, and it's a very good idea, but again, it's difficult to find a way to do it. How do we identify those households that have extra rooms, have big family or small family? How can we get people to move in? And that's all kind of difficult things to approach. It's a good idea, but hard to do. So I want to ask all the commissioners and Mr. Borman and see what happened. How can we do it?
Well, I know that at the study session, some resources were mentioned. So one was the white paper that Minka distributed just before our meeting, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but that was from San Mateo County, correct?
Yes, San Mateo County did a white paper. Yes, I haven't. I just haven't read it through thoroughly either.
And then I don't know if it was.
I just got it before I came here.
I don't know if it was Corey Walbach or someone else had mentioned a guy named Brent.
I think, it was, I believe, one of the council members mentioned the city manager of the planning director of East Palo Alto lives in Palo Alto, and we might consider a conversation with him. That's something, let me see. That was Councilmember Wolbach.
It is.
Brent Butler.
Yeah, we served on IBRC together.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
good guy.
All right.
So he's a planning manager in EPA.
Yeah, because we might be able to get some ideas and best practices from another community that have that conversation.
Right.
I thought that was a wonderful idea, just to have him come, in view of the ongoing series we've had on housing, to have him come and share his ideas.
Yeah.
Invite him to come over.
Yeah, I think if we take a look at East Palo Alto or San Mateo County, might get some ideas, that we can start with, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel all the time for Palo Alto, even though we're a very unusual and eclectic community in our own right. But sometimes there are some possible solutions out there that we can derive and get a head start with. So I'd love to follow up with those suggestions.
I'll take care of that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Minka.
You might also look at, there's a program in San Mateo County called HIP Housing.
It's called what?
HIP Housing, Housing for Independent People. They do kind of I wouldn't call it co-housing, because co-housing is a whole big concept. I think we're looking, what we're really talking about here is more shared housing.
Okay.
So, and they do a shared housing program, not exclusively for seniors, but people that do have an extra room in their house. Often it's seniors, and often the person that moves in has a caretaker function. So it might be interesting to hear what they have to say and see if it has any applications to Palo Alto.
Okay.
So, in what city is it?
It's in San Mateo County. I believe they're located in Redwood City, Mary. I'd have to look again, but it's San Mateo County.
It's HIP, HIP?
HIP, HIP.
Okay.
It's an acronym.
Okay. So Commissioner Chen, you have some additional things to research
right.
now. Are you happy?
Okay.
And I think, Commissioner Chen, I think, if you and
I'd like
maybe
to get some other commissioners to
I
be
think
on
you'll
board.
need another commissioner.
I
don't
have only
believe-
one person here.
Right, and I think if you meet with staff, I think, again, this might be one of those issues that we could really work some things through, and staff can do some research, and to bring something back a little more formulated, because I think that works better in the commission sense than trying to do that type of brainstorming in this setting.
Okay.
And I would like to say, I am interested particularly as it applies to seniors, because that's the issue that is my hot button right now, how that would apply. And I was just going to comment, reiterate what Minka just said, which is co-housing is this particular idea that that became very, very common about 20 years ago. And the problem with it is you have to have not huge, but significant amounts of property, which is difficult in Palo Alto. So I think that what Minka was saying is correct, which is you have to look on some kind of comparative or different kind of view of what co-housing means in Palo Alto. Because co-housing itself, in the Scandinavian model, involves buying a property such as a school or a larger piece of property, and that would be very difficult in Palo Alto. People tried 20 years ago, private people tried, and it was very difficult.
Yeah, I know too that we have heard from seniors asking if the zoning restrictions on some of their properties could be more flexible so that they could, rent out an in-law type unit. But the problem is you can't have a second kitchen, I think it is in Palo Alto. There's some zoning requirements that prevent that. But many seniors, when they came to our Palo Alto meetings, asked about those options because they'd like to stay in their home, but they'd like to be able to get some extra money by renting out the parts that aren't being used.
I was asking Mary because she's the note taker and keeps more of that of what Hillary said when she came, and it has to do with the kitchen.
Yeah,
so,
it has to do with the kitchen.
But those are kind of, if the commission is grappling with policy issues, I think, and looking as end result is, a policy that they could move forward to the council with, I think that might be one to consider, or just looking at what you're doing through the policy realm, because creating an ongoing program obviously is not the realm of the HRC, but investigating an issue, saying through our investigation, this really, we've been able to spend the time to investigate this. We have this idea that could be something that, a local service provider might be willing to take on or to give comment on.
Okay. All right, thank you. So Commissioner Chen, do you need any more ideas or suggestions?
If you have any, you're welcome to say it, but I think I'm going to meet with the staff member Minka in the near future and discuss in detail. It's a very broad area to concentrate with any specific issue, so I got to have to spend a lot of time researching it and talk to people to come up with some solid suggestions.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much for your diligence in doing that, because you are our master researcher, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to our next agenda item. I'm sorry, what? No. Well, do you want to comment on a future thing that's on the agenda? Oh, no. I'm sorry. We passed that part, but you can talk to me after the meeting. Okay. All right. Let's go on to item number 6, which is update on the planning for the Civility Roundtable. So just to recap, we were hoping to do a Civility Roundtable earlier in the year, but the timeline was just too compressed, especially following right on the Senior Summit, and so we canceled the one we had tentatively scheduled for February. I'd still really love for us to do one this year. I think that Mountain View's HRC has provided an excellent model that we can build on, but we need someone or someones to take ownership and with a longer lead time. So since we're in March, we would be talking about maybe end of summer, fall, several months down the road, pull together an event. And of course, I think other commissioners can jump in and support this effort, but we need to identify some team leads. Now, several of you at our retreat last year mentioned you were interested in doing one. I don't know if anyone's willing to step up now and say, we will definitely do this one this year in this quarter, and then kind of really start working toward a date. So does anybody have any interest in stepping up and doing that? I think Mehdi is possibly interested, but later in the year, although with his Homeless Vets project, I'm not sure how much bandwidth he'll have.
Yes.
And I know that we had talked about some other possibilities as well. So
Can we perhaps put it on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss it further at that time, just so that we can refresh our memory about, we had several ideas, I remember. And this is what one would call refreshing, trying to refresh.
Well, it'd be important actually just to pretty much identify a date and now, because as we learned, sadly, from our last experience, it has to be planned out over several months. So we can't delay too long because we won't get it done during this year. So I'm hoping someone will say, I will do one, and we can figure out the topic and everything else, but we need to kind of put it on a timeline soon. So no one wants to take it on?
Yeah, no, I can't commit at this point either. I'm planning another national conference for August, so no, I cannot volunteer at this point.
Okay.
But we're going to have a summit, right, in July. Yeah, on the homeless veterans project. So, so the most reasonable time for this is right later in the year.
Yeah.
Right. And then I don't remember, what kind of topics that we have discussed before.
Well, we had talked about diversity, I think homelessness, police. So we had several topics floating around at one time.
I think there was something to do also with immigrant communities in our town, which tied to diversity.
Okay.
But
that's diversity, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd still love to show that wonderful film that we saw at the HRC.
Right. But we do need some. And there's also the day worker film that was probably the impetus like a year and a half ago. Because I just spoke with Anna at the Day Worker Center a couple weeks ago, and she asked me what happened to that. Yeah.
And we also need to know what are actually the kind of work involved, how much time we're going to take to organize one, and do we have to go out to get people to involve?
Well, there is...
the details, we need to know some details.
Well, the details, I don't have all the details, but the broad strokes are that the Mountain View HRC partners with the Project Sentinel, which runs Palo Alto Mediation Program, which is under our purview. And they really set up the event for them. They find speakers and panelists. I think the HRC chooses a topic, and then they really project with Project Sentinel to pull the thing together and advertise it widely in the community. So that HRC is offloaded somewhat because Project Sentinel does a lot of the work in terms of providing facilitators and helping them reach out and gather panelists. When I was trying to do it, I was really trying to do it all by myself, which I think was a mistake in retrospect. So having learned from that mistake, I would just, if anyone is interested, I think that we can hook you up with some partners to help pull the event together. But as I said, I'd like it to be on the calendar for this year sometime. And so looking 6 months out, we're into October, November. So we need to really kind of start planning it now to have it, come before the holidays and be, at an advantageous time where we can get a lot of community interest. So if no one's interested, I'll check in with Mehdi when he returns. But if no one wants to step up, then this is just something we're not going to do, and we'll have to take it off the plan.
I think, I have an idea not to do too much in a year. If you're doing 2 summits and then plus a silver round, it seems to be a lot of things, work going on in a year. Maybe you can space out. Maybe you can have one next year.
Well, my thought was the summits we've been having have been more geared toward agencies and government representatives and so forth. I'd really like for us to do one community event where it's open to the public. It's for the whole of Palo Alto to come and have a conversation. And the civility roundtables are intriguing to me because we've had a lack of civility in our own community and an inability to talk cordially and respectfully to each other about difficult topics. So I love that Mountain View has this format that really encourages civil discourse on a difficult topic. And I just think it's something we could really bring to our community, and it might be quite valuable to just be able to share that experience with the community at large. But if we don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the bandwidth. But that's my thinking, is that it would be somewhat different from the summits we're doing, which are a little more insular.
I had to miss the last one that there was. Do we know, is there an upcoming one from Mountain View?
Well, Mountain View, I believe, does one a year. So last year's was on affordable housing. I don't know if they have a topic this year. Another thought, though, is that I'm sure Lucas Ramirez and some of the other members of the Mountain View HRC would be happy to meet with us and share how they do it, what their process is, and we can borrow some best practices from them. So again, I think we have something of a head start. If anyone, again, but we have to have some team leads and people who are really willing to do it.
The other thing I would say, in any of our subjects, we cannot find any community, partner to work with us. It will be very, very hard for just our commissioner to work on the subject. So we have to identify a topic that's related to whatever the community needs, and also this nonprofit or another organization in the community is still already working on the subject, so we can team together.
Right. Well, it sounds like a big priority for us this year is youth well-being. So perhaps we can take away from this discussion tonight, if you all sleep on this a little bit, perhaps there is a topic related to youth well-being that we could partner with the school district, the school board, talk to Mountain View HRC, talk to Project Sentinel, talk to many people, and Project Safety Net representatives as well, and then see if there is a difficult topic that would lend itself to a civility roundtable that we think would be worthy of HRC sponsorship, and then see if we can pull that event together for the fall. That would be my thought.
I know a big push of Project Safety Net that we're trying to do is just mental health stigma reduction. And I think that goes through the spectrum from birth till seniors. So that might be something that might be attractive to the HRC because it carries that full spectrum. It's most manifest now, with some of the concerns with the youth, but I think stigma reduction is key to what Project Safety Net is trying to do as far as education is concerned. So that's it's very prevalent.
All right, I think that's a great idea, Minka, and perhaps we could even partner with a national organization like NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, and really get some great publicity, not just in Palo Alto, but in the surrounding communities, because I think mental health and mental health awareness and the stigma surrounding mental health issues it's one of the last taboos, that people just still can't really talk about. And, I think it's be very, very on point for the HRC to lead the way in terms of destigmatizing and being able to have a civil discourse around those types of very difficult issues, especially in a community like ours with multiple cultures and people who from different religious and cultural backgrounds sometimes have a very hard time discussing openly because of feelings of shame or taboo,
Right, and I think that's, looking back at the council comments from Monday night, that was one of them, was just digging a little bit deeper with Project Safety Net and what's the value added that the HRC can play. Commissioner Stone is on one of the subcommittees already, but what is the role of the HRC in that? And perhaps that could be the role that you play. You're not the experts on suicide prevention. You go to different content experts for different things. But the role of the HRC is what you said earlier, Chair Onan, is to bring important issues before the community, to have those community conversations.
All right. Well, I'm liking this so much that I'm thinking I might volunteer to do it, even though I swear I would never do another one. And maybe make Mehdi help me because he's not here, and that's what happens when you miss a meeting, because I'd bring you onto my subcommittee. Yes, Commissioner Ward.
No, just very quickly, I'm not sure exactly how this would be phrased, and part of what I like about one having to do with mental health is to some extent that I think it would be possibly addressing the same issues but not so confrontationally. The confrontational issue, I would say, has to do with diversity, but part of that is income diversity. So for example, the movie that we saw that had to do with youth, that had to do as much with income, what I call income diversity, and shame around that in our community, as it does with other kinds of diversity that we're more aware of, like immigrants or racial or other kinds of that. But that's a topic that would interest me, eventually, which is just to address issues regarding, and that segues into housing too, that has to do with income diversity. Increasing gentrification, difficulty, things of that nature.
Yeah. I think that would also be an excellent, it sounds like you should be leading a civility roundtable, Commissioner Moran. All right, so it sounds like right now people don't want to commit, but we do have some interesting thoughts and ideas because we need to revisit. I'll sleep on it. I encourage my colleagues to sleep on it, and let's see what we can come up with. And if we don't have the bandwidth and can't commit soon, we're going to have to take it off the table, but I'm hoping that somehow we will find the resources to pull that event together because I really want to do something for the whole community this year. All right, any other comments on a potential civility roundtable? All right, so we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is kind of a sad one, recognition of service. I hope I'm not going to get all weepy, but Ray Bacchetti has just been such an incredible touchstone for the HRC for years. I think he's been serving for about a decade now. Minka, do you know? Yeah, for a long, long, long time. And I really only met Ray about 5 years ago, and he and I became friends, and he became my mentor, and he encouraged me to join the HRC. So I've been always so grateful to him for showing me that path. And I know he's been a friend and mentor to many people on the commission, and he's well known throughout the community. I know all the city council members know Ray, and he's volunteered for various things, the Blue Ribbon Infrastructure Commission. He served on the boards of many local nonprofits. He drove up to Ashland multiple times a year. Of course, he got to see plays, but still, And anyway, Ray wanted very much to finish out his final term as commissioner on a very strong note, but he has been sidelined with health problems for quite some time. He's not able to be here with us tonight, but in that we are still a public forum. I just want to express for myself, and I hope I can speak for the whole commission, how much we appreciate all the work that Ray has done for us, for the city, for even beyond the city, for the whole community at large, in every aspect, from helping out with difficult budget discussions to being a patron of the arts, to encouraging education reform, to helping to fix the city's sidewalks. I mean, you name it, Ray's been involved. So I just wish he could be here with us tonight. I really, really wanted to give him a send-off, and I'm just so sorry that he can't be here. But does anyone else have any thoughts they'd like to share about Commissioner Bacchetti? Yes.
Well, two. One of them is one of the things that I'm impressed with is an area that is not my forte, that's for sure, which is metrics. And when I think of Commissioner Bacchetti and what he does, I constantly think of him and his extraordinary expertise, where he would turn around and say, well, what about metrics? What about how are we going to measure this? So that's one thought. The other one is I just have to share with you, I was driving down Embarcadero, and I saw a shuttle. And on that shuttle, there were the faces of several different kinds of people. And I saw one that I recognized. And on it, it said, and it saves the soul as well. And then it was spelled S-O-L-E, as in the soles of your feet. Oh. And I thought, well, that's Ray Bacchetti and his sense of humor right there on the bus going by. And it made me miss him.
And does anyone else have any thoughts they want to share about Ray?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize how he was the voice of reason and the voice of wisdom, both for the HRC. And I think we will all miss him, but I know he'll be watching us.
Greer, I know he served as a mentor to you, too. Do you have any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, Ray, immediately once I joined this commission, really took me under his wing. He brought me to Il Fornaio for breakfast several times, and every time walking in, I felt like I was with the Godfather, because everyone knew his name, and they gave him his favorite table, and they knew exactly the kind of coffee he wanted and his toast, and he always treated, and he always just gave his wisdom to me, and it was just incredible, and I knew every time talking to him that I was just listening to someone who had years of knowledge, who was just so happy to give it. And to teach and to mentor. And so, wherever I am at today in my limited knowledge and wherever I'm going, I'm always going to owe so much of it to Ray for taking the time to mentor me, and he will be dearly missed.
Yeah, I want to say something about Ray. And we work in the subcommittee for housing, affordable housing, and the same thing, he treated me to coffee a few times, and every time you had a Excel chart with all this plan, what date we're going to do, and then to the end, like after a year, and then he said, oh, you got to do this, and I do this. And then he was so organized and then very upfront, and then worked diligently toward the goal. I learned so much from him, because he's not on the subcommittee that I'm slow now.
Yes, I think one of the last times I saw Ray was at the senior summit. He was still well enough at that point to attend most of the summit. And in his inimitable style, he cracked everybody up because we were going around the room briefly introducing ourselves, and Ray basically, he could really make himself be puffed up. I mean, he could mention all these affiliations, but he always just introduces himself in the most humble possible way, and his name tag always just says 3 letters, R-A-Y. Like he never goes into any attempts to make himself important. But we went around the room introducing ourselves, and Ray basically said, I'm attending this summit because I'm getting old and I need to know how to do that. And we all just laughed so much. So anyway, I really miss that very, very humble, self-effacing way he has. So many people in this political realm have some kind of agenda, and Ray just was one of those people who didn't. He just genuinely wanted to serve, and that was very refreshing. Did you have something you wanted to share with us?
I'd love to, and thank you for the opportunity. I didn't know this was on the agenda tonight, and could probably talk for 15 minutes about Ray. I haven't worked with him as closely as you guys have on HRC, although we did serve on the Infrastructure Blue Ribbon Commission together and have become friends over the past 5 years. But the one story that I think best kind of symbolizes Ray to me is when I was running for council in 2012, then Mayor Yahweh Ye invited me to do track watch with him. And it was, I think, a Sunday night, and he said, meet me at, I can't remember exactly which intersection it was, at 10 o'clock at night or something like that, and I show up and I see the hat, and it was Ray's hat, and it was Ray, and I said, Ray, what are you doing here? And he said, what am I doing here? This is my 130th stint doing track watch. What are you doing here? And I said, I'm supposed to meet Yahweh. He's like, Yahweh's down at the other intersection. He told you the wrong one. That I had no idea he'd ever, he did that once, let alone I can't remember if it was over 100 or barely, under 100 times. Just so kind of symbolizes Ray and how much he cares about our community, whether it's in public or whether it's sitting by himself, watching over the Caltrain tracks. So it breaks my heart that he's can't be here and isn't doing so hot. But he's a heck of a role model for all of us to follow.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us, Councilmember Berman. I too have a million Ray stories, and maybe at some point we should all go out for a drink together and toast Ray. I think you'd really enjoy that. So hopefully Ray's health problems will abate and he will be well enough for us to see him out in the community again. I really hope so. But this would have been his last meeting, so where's the TV camera? Bye, Ray. And we hope that we'll see you soon. All right. So for our final order of business tonight, we have reports from officials. Do any commissioners have reports on anything that they have been doing?
I just did give a seminar at the Senior Friendship Day this past Wednesday. Talk about the topic about how to talk to your doctor. Slides are in English and Chinese. I spoke English and Chinese. First time I spoke a lot of English. There were only 3 non-Chinese persons in the audience. So that was including there's 4. So that was pretty fun, and I think they enjoy it, and they learn how to talk to a doctor so to get their problem treated. Because a lot of problem in Chinese, patients they would take Chinese medicine, doing some alternative treatment, not talking to their doctors. I say no, gotta do it. That was pretty interesting.
Great. Anyone else have an update? Any meetings with the police or?
Since you brought it up, both Greer and I have been here since 8 a.m. this morning, sitting on a promotion panel for police. Greer did promotion to agent, I did promotion to sergeant. And it was a very interesting, educational, at times entertaining 9 hours.
That is dedication. That is truly dedication. Anyone else have a commissioner have a report? Right? Does our council liaison have anything you want to report?
We just saw you guys on Monday. You guys know everything.
That's true.
Nothing that comes to mind, no.
All right. Thank you. All right. And our staff liaison, do you have a report for us?
The one thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that on May 5th, I believe, we do have an occasional series when nonprofit partners come and do presentations during special orders of the day at the council meeting. And on May 5th or 6th, whatever the Monday is, Palo Alto Mediation Program will be coming and doing a partner presentation in front of the council.
All right, thank you.
May I inquire? So we're talking on a Tuesday or Wednesday?
Whatever that Monday is.
Oh, the
I
4th.
can't think off the top of my head.
Monday the 4th?
That first Monday in May.
May 4th.
Thank you.
So at the regular commission time?
At the regular council time. Special orders of the day is first on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Minka.
Thank you.
All right, so our next agenda item actually needs a teeny bit of discussion. Our regular meeting would be on Thursday, April 9th. Minka and I had discussed the possibility that we might either not meet that night or we might not meet in April because we have to go to Finance and possibly Policy and Services Committees of Council to talk about his rep and the funding cycle. And that may take up so much time that that's really what we'll be doing in April. So I don't know, though, Minka, have you had a chance to think about this? What are your thoughts?
No, I'm still waiting. As far as we're going to Finance Committee on the 21st with the HISREP application. So the other conversation, I'm still waiting for direction from my department chair.
Okay.
As far as the second question, the report.
Okay.
So I don't have that yet.
Okay. So it's possible we won't meet as a full commission in April because of other commission work that's going on. So everybody kind of stay tuned. So we'll try to make sure we get this out to everybody quickly, whether we're on or we're off, or if we have to change the date. It's just that there's a lot going on in the spring, and we want to use our time and energy wisely. And there's no point having a meeting if everything we're doing is offline to that meeting. Okay, so is there anything else anybody wants to bring up or discuss? Are we good? And in that case, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.